All right, today we are diving into something that can be a real game changer in real estate: seller financing. Think of it as a creative key to unlock a deal when all the usual doors seem to be locked shut. You've been there, right? You find the perfect place, you're ready to go, but the bank just says, no. It is incredibly frustrating, and it happens all the time. But here's the thing: that no doesn't have to be the final word. So here's our game plan. We're going to open up what I call the creative financing toolbox. First step, we'll talk about why traditional loans fall apart so often. Then we'll see how seller financing swoops in to save the day. We'll pull out the two biggest tools in the box: the purchase mortgage and the land contract. After that, we'll take a peek at some other creative gadgets, and then we'll wrap up with the most important part: the rules of the game, making sure everyone plays fair and stays protected. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. To really get why seller financing is so powerful, you first have to understand the problem it's trying to solve. Why do so many perfectly good deals hit a wall with conventional banks? Well, a lot of the time, it's stuff that's totally out of your control. The economy could be in a tight spot, so banks just aren't lending money freely. Or maybe interest rates are through the roof, making that monthly payment impossible. Sometimes the bank's rules are just so rigid and strict. But one of the biggest hurdles is often that huge cash down payment. Not many people have that kind of money just sitting around. So when you hit those roadblocks, it's easy to think, well, that's it. But this is the exact moment seller financing steps into the spotlight. It's a totally different way of thinking about the deal. So what is it exactly? It's actually pretty simple. The seller becomes the bank. That's it. Instead of you going to some giant corporation for a loan, you work out the terms directly with the person selling you the property. And that simple change, well, it opens up a whole new world of what's possible. All right, let's get our hands dirty. We're opening the toolbox, and the first thing we're grabbing is the most common tool of them all: the purchase money mortgage. With this one, it's exactly what it sounds like. The seller gives you, the buyer, a mortgage. The fancy legal name for the seller in this scenario is the mortgagee. It really works just like a normal mortgage, but instead of writing a check to a bank every month, you're paying the person who sold you the house. Now, you might be thinking, why on earth would a seller want to do this? Well, there are some huge upsides for them. For one, it can help them sell the property way faster, maybe even for a better price. They're not stuck with all the red tape and rigid rules of a bank, so they can be super flexible with the interest rate, the payment schedule, you name it. And here's the kicker for the seller: by getting paid over several years, they can spread out their profit. That's not just a neat trick, it's a smart financial move that can have some serious tax benefits. See, it can really be a win-win for everyone. Theory is one thing, but let's see how this works in the real world. Let's talk about Grandma Perkins. She's got a townhouse she owns free and clear, and she wants to sell it. Along come the Jenkins family. They absolutely love it, but they just can't get a bank loan. Grandma knows they're good people, so she says, "Don't worry about the bank, I'll finance it for you." Okay, check out this deal. The price is $90,000. The Jenkins put $8,000 down, but look at this. This is where the magic happens. The interest rate starts low and only goes up gradually. And get this, for the first 6 years, the Jenkins only have to pay the interest. That gives them breathing room to get on their feet. Can you imagine a bank ever offering terms this personal and this flexible? No way. Of course, not every situation is as clean as Grandma Perkins. Most properties already have a mortgage on them, and the biggest obstacle you'll find is a little thing called an alienation clause, or a due on sale clause. Basically, it's a sentence in the mortgage contract that says if the property is sold, the entire loan has to be paid back immediately. That puts a stop to just simply taking over the seller's loan. So how do you get around that? Well, there are a couple of really clever techniques. On one hand, you have a wraparound mortgage. Here, the seller creates a new, bigger loan for the buyer that literally wraps around their old one. The seller keeps making their old, low-interest payments while collecting a higher interest rate from the buyer. Pretty smart, huh? On the other hand, you have an assumption, but that only works if the original loan doesn't have that pesky alienation clause. If it doesn't, the buyer can sometimes just take over the seller's payments. Okay, time to reach back into the toolbox. Let's grab our second major tool. This one is called a land contract, and it's a different beast entirely. The number one thing you need to know about a land contract is who owns the deed. With this method, the seller holds on to the legal title of the property. The buyer gets to move in, they get to use the house, but they don't actually get the title put in their name until they've made that very last payment. Now, right away, that should raise a big red flag for the buyer. Think about it. You're faithfully making your payments to the seller every month. But what if the seller still has their own mortgage on the property and they just stop paying it? Their bank could foreclose, and you could lose absolutely everything, even though you did nothing wrong. That's a scary thought, but don't worry. There's a safety net for this exact problem. It's called a contract escrow. Here's how it works step by step. 1. The buyer makes their payment to a neutral third party, called an escrow agent. 2. The escrow agent's first job is to use that money to pay the seller's original mortgage. 3. Once that's taken care of, they pass the rest of the money along to the seller. It's a simple system that protects the buyer completely. And if you want another layer of security, you get what's called an estoppel letter. This is a formal document you get from the seller's bank. In it, the bank basically says, yep, we know about this sale, and we agree not to use our alienation clause to call the loan due. That word estoppel is just a fancy legal way of saying they are prevented, or estopped, from going back on their word. That makes it a very, very powerful piece of paper to have. Now, those are the big two, but our toolbox is deep. Let's do a quick fire round and look at a few specialty tools you might find for more unique situations. Okay, let's run through these. First, the lease/option. This is your classic rent-to-own setup. It lets you live in the house as a renter, but with the legal right to buy it later at a set price. It's like test driving your future home. Next is an equity exchange. This is perfect if your down payment isn't in cash. You can literally trade other valuable things, a piece of land, a nice boat, a classic car, for equity in the property. And finally, the participation loan. This is interesting. An investor gives you cash, but instead of charging interest, they get a percentage of the property's equity. It's less of a loan and more like they're becoming a partner in your investment. Look, these tools are incredibly powerful. There's no doubt about it. But like any powerful tool, if you don't use them correctly, you can get seriously hurt. So you have to know the rules. I think this quote from the source material really says it all. Having the will to get a creative deal done is great, but you have to pair that creativity with extreme caution to make sure that everybody, the buyer and the seller, is protected. So with that in mind, here is your safety checklist. These are the non-negotiables. Number 1, due diligence. You have to investigate every corner of the property, the title, and the deal itself. Number 2, full disclosure. Everyone has to put all their cards on the table. No secrets about other loans, financial situations, nothing. And number 3, and listen, this one is the most important of all, get legal counsel. Do not, under any circumstances, try to do this kind of deal without an experienced real estate attorney looking over every single piece of paper. So, we've opened up the toolbox. We've seen that seller financing isn't about finding shady loopholes. It's about building creative solutions when the standard path is blocked. And now that you know what's in the toolbox, the only question left is, could one of these tools be the key that finally unlocks the door to your next real estate deal?